Hi, so today we're going to be going over my results of the reflective learning assignment, and in general, just going to see how my results connect to my personal and occupational uh, attributes. So, analyzing the results, we did over like 6 personality tests that were pretty big in psychological literature. And the first test we did was the Big Five, which just measures what they consider the most important personality traits, with each having their own 6 different facets about them. So for extroversion, I ranked very low in. Agreeableness, very low in as well. Conscientiousness was my probably my highest ranked one on average, and then neuroticism, which was probably my second or first top one that I ranked in, and then pretty moderately I ranked in openness, and I say like with all these results combined, I'm very like reserved and like tend to be more introverted, and I definitely prefer my solitude, as I think with my low trust, like I tend to be like more self-reliant and organized with my high conscientiousness, and like I try to like avoid the stress of dealing with other people. And I think that oftentimes I am like skeptical of people's intentions, and although like I'm not open uh, to people, I'm often open to their ideas and like uh, and just to increase my effectiveness. But in that personal aspect or professional aspect, like I think these qualities definitely make me prefer like more detailed forms of communication rather than like spur of the moment stuff with like conversations, but also like my low agreeableness and like high conscientiousness leads me to be very accepting of criticism in like the form of like personal construction. But also this leads me to like my independent nature. I tend to avoid building relationships in the turn of productivity, and like when this happens, like I tend to like overthink and stress, making me very defensive during as my conflict style when I'm challenged. And I just to keep that in mind, just go through my emotions. And I think according to like Tilson of the research that I did in his paper Pros and Cons of Personality Tests in the Hiring Process, he generally said that like in this that of the person indicators that conscientiousness was like the biggest and strongest predictor of overall job performance, and that it's like very stable and a comprehensive framework for like overall describing personality. And but also it definitely has like an over reliance and like a strong bias, as it's like very dependent on like the specific job and like the cultural and context of your work environment. So moving on, we have the Myers-Briggs type indicator assessment, and in general, this is based on the Jungian psychological type theory, and it just measures forward simple directions, attitude and energy, uh, information gathering and perceiving, decision making and judging, and lifestyle and orientation. And in general, with strong introversion and thinking, I ranked about like an INTP evaluation, and I think this is pretty true, definitely based off my other personality test. Like I definitely prefer to be like socially shy, and I definitely rather like replace small talks with deeper conversations, and that like when conflicts do arise, I definitely need more time to process my thoughts and recharge. But at the end of that recharging, I think I definitely have a more like abstract solutions and like uh, complex solutions. And that like I put on a side note that just to keep in mind that even though like I just need to ignore, even though I'm more focused on the facts of a case, I should generally more rely on leaning into the more emotional side, as not to like snub other people. And according to like the Jungian like typology, in like the coaching sense, it's very memorable, as like it helps like they helps like fuel discussions and helps like employees get their own like useful insight. and it could be used to build like diverse teams and like with like different section subsections of like cognitive and uh like and like information styles, which could cross over different areas and cover more areas and ground. And but at the same time, it does lack a lot of scientific rigor, as like it's often has like a lack of independence and it can't really be scaled and reproduced. And moving on, we have the locus of control test, and this basically just means like how someone interprets like events occur in life if they believe it was the result of their own behavior or outside behavior. And like personally, I think, and as proven by the test too, I think I personally have a very internalized locus of control. As I'm with my self-reliance, I'm very responsible for my own successes and failures, and that like in my professional life, I take like the initiative and go above at least the above the minimum at the very least, as and that could lead to me being like a good role model and like inspiring other people just and like just that generally yields better results. But also that could lead me to like trying to like lacking empathy for like externally oriented people because they have different experiences and they may generally be unluckier if that's something you believe in. And that leads me into just understanding that to avoid that control fatigue or just burnout from just realizing that some outcomes are truly random and that like I can't be responsible for everything and anything that could possibly happen in a workspace. And going off of that, like uh, understanding that this test is very good at like predicting job satisfaction and it's a good predictor of job satisfaction, as people with high levels of internal control can like influences uh, like your workplace environment by making it just more positive and just having that more self-reliance and initiative of because they believe they are responsible for what they create. And moving on, we have the Machiavellianism test, which which generally just outlines if you have like a lack of moral concern or emotional detachment. And I scored a very low, like a low Mach of 48 100, which is pretty neutral. Because I think this makes sense. I generally have like good honesty and morality. I don't go out of my way to like lie and deceive, as I generally believe it really has no purpose if I generally believe like my intentions are for the betterment of other people and myself. And I generally try to be like a people pleaser and to be fair and have like a level of like reputation is very important to me. But also that could lead me taking on like requests that I might not be able to actually complete, and just in general learning to say no. And I used Whittaker's paper, The Detrimental Effect of Machiavellianism Leadership on Employees, just to like analyze unethical work behavior. And he basically says how it's a high scores are a strong indicator of narcissism, and it can indicate a good leader. It doesn't mean a right leader, but a leader generally exhibits like high levels of Machiavellianism because they have the ability to control other people and convince other people. And the scale is sometimes like criticized for inconsistent reliability. And moving on, we have the narcissistic personality inventory, which generally is just like measures narcissism and entitlement. And I scored a very 15 out of 40, which is about 63% higher than the average person in my age group. And I would say this makes sense because due to my like high levels of internal dialogue with my conscientiousness, I'd say like and cautiousness too is an important one. That like I tend to self-reflect before reflect on other people. And like, but on the contrary, if I also believe I noted that like, if I do have like a high moral standing that I believe, it may lead me to believe that people have a lower like moral standing, which may make me like have a superiority complex. But also in my workplace, it leads me into having like higher self-sufficiency, but also lower agreeableness, which was shown. And this could lead me to believe that people are really just like tools to be used, which is something I should definitely avoid and not exploit people. And like generally, this test, tracks for traits like authority and self-sufficiency, which I noted, and just in general narcissistic individuals, which could create like a toxic work environment. And it like just provides people like with status and power understanding of these qualities, but also just avoid like high narcissism. And then lastly, I have my RSEC, REASEC markers, and this just is very basic, six basic interests, and I ranked high in conventional, realistic, and investigative qualities. And these are like the last ones are pretty accurate that I believe. I generally like working with data and records and like cleaning them and organizing them. And like bookkeeping is a big one, and statistical, and like in my degree of economics, I do a lot of regression analysis and data analytics. And like I enjoy seeing tangible results, such as like cleaning and building data. And I enjoy like working with new ideas and forms of data construction, just to like get rid of any mundaneness. And I do prefer like systematic approaches. And according to I noted in the career advice, the career key, they reflect the Holland's theory of career choice, which basically just outlines like career counseling and development, high job satisfaction, retention, and with a little downside of limited interests, because interests are definitely more than just six in general. And it definitely is good. It's definitely very simplistic and can be used for an applicant to find a good fit in a company or organization. And it's very simple and effective. So I think overall it was really good, and I enjoyed doing all these tests, and definitely outlined a lot of pros and cons of my current occupational values.